Here we have our good place to start computer with the G1 Gaming 980 Ti from Gigabyte in. If we look at the user bench results, you see for gaming we get a UFO, which is basically saying if it's excellent PC for gaming. The only thing they're complaining about, we've tested the one with the hybrid drive, not with the SSD, but other than that overall scores are excellent. If we scroll down, we can see here the CPU got in the 65th percentile, which again is above average, which is excellent. The graphics card we've actually got in the 80th percentile, which is very, very good, and this is for 980 Ti's, which basically says it's one of the better ones. But as we know, there are some higher models. The solid state hybrid drive also fared fairly well, and the RAM fared excellently. Now if we move on to 3D Mark, we've got a score of 14,360, which is an excellent score. As you can see here, with this kind of graphics card, we could see the physics score as the lowest part, which is CPU bound. So this is the point where you might start to really see some value by rather going for something like the 600-700K and even maybe overclocking it a bit. But we will do a few tests with that later on and demonstrate it as well. If we look at the online compared score, you can see it's better than 90% of computers, so this is really a serious gaming PC already as it is, and at the price we feel it's excellent value for money, and you really can do everything from serious 2K gaming into most games on 4K, which we'll demonstrate in the rest of this video. Here we have Dota running at 2K on the 980 Ti, sitting about 115 frames per second here, goes up to 118, there we're down to 114, but more than you'd need for playing something like Dota. This is Counter-Strike Go at 2K with the 980 Ti, seeing about 180, there 158 frames per second, back up to about 180. Let's see if we find some action there. We're in the 200s, so we're definitely very comfortable on this one. So there we drop down to 157 with some particle physics, still 180, so no problem at all. Here we have Civilizations 5 running at 2K. We're seeing a nice 140 plus frames a second. Movement 144 frames per second. As expected, you wouldn't expect a card like this to have any issues with something like Civilizations 5. Here we have Call of Duty 5, World at War, Nazi Zombies, running at 2K with a 980 Ti. As we'd expect to see, it's locked in completely at its 91 frame per second limit. It seems to be no matter what you do, it with most modern almost higher end modern graphics card, it's stuck at that limit. Here we have Skyrim running at 2K. As you'd expect, it should stay with nice and high frame rates. There's 60 frames per second. Let's see if we get some more details for it to render. It seems to be very happy and staying at 60 frames per second. Here we have Borderlands the pre-sequel running at 2K. You see a nice 100 frames per second. Let's see what happens to that if we create a little bit of action here. Seeing 120 frames, 100, 90. Yeah, seems to be staying around the mid high 90s. There we actually dropped down to about 88, but not too bad. Seems to be perfectly fine running at 2K, and could actually run a 2K 144 Hz refresh rate monitor on this, and it should be perfect. Here we have Project Cars running at 2K with the 980 Ti on our i5 good place to start PC. This is significant because this is actually one of the few DirectX 12 games available at the moment. And the DirectX 12 games use a lot more of the CPU power if it's available, and that basically says with this kind of graphics card the i5 is more than enough, because we're seeing frame rates of between 150 and 130 frames per second, which is great. I mean, it's high enough that you could really actually get some of the benefit if you're running a 2K 144Hz monitor, especially if you have something like G-Sync, which will sync every frame to give you incredibly smooth image. Here we have Battlefield 4 running at 2K. 2K Ultra settings is really a breeze for this card. The specific area on the test range is the lowest frames per second we normally find, and we're basically keeping above 100 frames per second. We saw 98 there. If we introduce some particle physics into it, drop down to 95, smoke effects, but it still overall stays very nice and high. So ultra settings, Battlefield 4, not an issue at all at 2K. Here we have Fractured Space running at 2K. Seeing 100 plus frames per second, about 108 frames per second. If we fire some missiles in there, 110, 106. Frame rate really stays excellent. 115 frames per second. Not a problem at all. Going into the 120 frames per second. It really is very nice and smooth at 2K. Excellent game if you really want to appreciate the visuals of a serious graphics card. This. Here we have the 980 Ti G1 Gaming running on TimeSpy, and we got a very respectable score of 5,499, and that gives us better than 69% of tests ran on here. To put this in perspective, from the 970 G1 we jumped up from a 3,738. That's a 47% increase, which is very nice. Just to give you an idea, this is ran on our good place to start with the 6700K platform. We also did a test running on a 6-core platform with the card overclocked a little bit, and this card was able to score 6,200 in that specific benchmark. But overall, the 980 Ti remains an excellent gaming card for high settings at 4K, and you can run everything maximum basically on 2K.